In this episode of the Leadership Hustle, we'll discuss where leaders fail in the promotion of managers. Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Hustle for executives whose companies are growing fast and need leaders who are ready. Welcome back to the Leadership Hustle. I'm Andrea Fredrickson, and Michelle has joined me. And our topic is really related to a conversation we had not too long ago. There was a VP that is hiring a person into a new manager role, and they're also hiring somebody from the outside into a manager role. So I was sitting down with her and I said, okay, so you've got these two new roles, brand new positions, and so what's your plan? And literally, I swear I could just hear her go, what? Right? But that's not what, it's like, that's not exactly how she said it, but it sounded, looked like, what do you mean? And so I said, let's look at the person that you are promoting from within. Do you have to do orientation? No, I don't have to do orientation. What's your onboarding look like?
There is no onboarding because they are existing.
Right. So it's like, let's put this person over to the side. You hire a new person into a manager role. Do you have to do orientation? Yes. How about onboarding? Yes. What does that look like? I don't know. What's the answer?
Or
right?
they know. Some do with that situation.
But in this
maybe
case,
not.
it's just like, I haven't gotten that far yet. I don't know what that looks like. I just know I have all these projects that I need to have taken care of. I need these off my plate. And so I'm just going at these are the things I need both of them to do. And I'm so looking forward to that. I'm like, all right, this conversation is how do we set them up to be really great managers in your department and you not be frustrated because they're not doing what you hired them to do.
Yes. And I think it's important to recognize it doesn't matter if they are someone that's been with the company for a long time, because I know from working with individuals, they'll make the assumption that, oh, they already know this, There's a lot of assumptions made, and so they don't have quite the detailed plan, whereas in sometimes working with organizations, they are a little more organized than that situation where they're like, oh, we do this, but that doesn't happen for that internal person.
I can remember this scenario that how come people aren't filling out PTO slips, or what happened to PTO slips? It's just and this leader's like, well, she used to fill out PTO slips. She should know how to take care of them. I'm like, really? All she knows is how to fill out a PTO request. It was a slip at that time, but a PTO request. She doesn't know what happens afterwards, right? She just knows they magically go somewhere or they get approved or disapproved or whatever it is, right? So there was nothing there. So we have three main parts of a plan that we believe are critical in getting managers, people into the manager role up to speed. So it's like you promoted them, now what, right?
Yes, you promote them, now what? And I mean, and within the first 90 days.
Right away, we got to get this going, right? This isn't one of those, I have all these projects, I'll do the orientation, I'll do the onboarding later. Nope, you got to do this first. So first thing we have on our list is that we need to set expectations. Give me some of the things that when we talk about expectations, what are we talking about making sure that this brand new manager leader understands as it relates to expectations? What are some of the things?
Well, I mean, so expectations are for a person in this role, what is it that we expect to see them doing? What are they responsible for accomplishing? But even to a point where they may do versus they may need to get done through others.
Okay.
I also think that if it's an internal manager, so someone who's been promoted, I think it's really important to talk about, yes, you know how to do all these things, but your job's no longer to do them. Your job is to train and develop people to do them because they're going to have a hard time letting go of what got them promoted. what's easy for them, right?
Right.
And they're no longer necessarily, they may have some responsibilities in doing, but what are those, right? What are those things that you want them to make sure that they've delegated permanently so they're not doing them any longer.
Which is actually the second part of our, so we have expectation, but the activities and priorities are those things.
Yes.
That's the second part of our,
It gets
our
into that.
step, right?
Yes.
So expectations might also include, what do you want them to know or be able to deliver or to be a part of in that first 30, 60, 90 days. So when we bring on a brand new manager, like with Revela, we talk about what do you want them to know or demonstrate the first day, the first week, the first month.
Yes.
That, like, those are expectations.
Yes. And having it broken out, not to interrupt,
right.
which I did.
All right.
To having it where if you break it out on what is it we want to start noticing them doing and seeing into this week, this third, fourth week, the month or whatever, it helps you remember to work with them on that.
Right.
Because otherwise it's really easy to bounce around and just be in the moment and not be intentional.
Winging it.
Oh, we need to do this, kind of scenario.
Yes, and
so
focus and give them those those experiences.
Yes.
To make sure that happens. There may be expectations of, we're going to meet weekly for this period of time, or we're going to meet every other week.
Yeah, what is this training, what does this development look like?
In your role, what is expected? Like, I, as the manager leader, might have expectations that they're not written in any job descriptions.
Oh, no.
They're not written in any place. We may have mentioned them during an interview. By the way, if an internal person was given an interview, that doesn't always happen. So, it's a matter of, have we had that conversation about what those expectations are? And that starts when you write the job description or when you start thinking about creating this position, like, what are the expectations we really have, right?
And it's expectations between you and them, but expectations between them and their people.
Right.
Because if you expect us to have one-on-ones weekly, what do you expect of me to do with my employees? Because a lot of times it just stops at that's expected of me. Doesn't necessarily transition to, oh shit, I should be doing that with my employees.
Right. You should be having one-on-ones. You should be checking in. Here's a couple of questions you can start asking, right?
Yes.
So there's the second is, what activities and what are the priorities? So in this scenario, this VP was saying, I have all these projects. And so she was going to dump them on these new positions. I'm like,
well, in the existing person, we're going to make a lot of assumptions that they could probably do them.
Making the assumptions. And by the way, don't forget, if you promoted a person into a role, they're leaving an open position behind them. So they have a foot in the old position, right?
And what does that look like?
And they're now learning something new, and it takes a minute to get the new, get your sea legs, as they say, in that new role. Now you're doing two jobs.
It takes a lot for them to let go of some of those things too.
And so do we help them understand what activities need to be delegated to people who aren't the people who are remaining until they get a new hire? Who's doing the hiring for the position that is now going to be reporting to this manager? Like, there's all these activities and priorities. And sometimes it's not just telling people what, but we have to teach them how to fulfill those expectations. So if an activity expectation is one-on-ones, how do you do them?
Yes.
Is there a place that they need to be recorded? Do they need to go into Paylocity or Paycor or Bamboo or some software? Or is it you can use your own system or whatever it happens to be?
Well, and I think even that step further, it's not just the what and the how, but it's also the why. Why are we doing those? Why do we find those? How do those help the team? How does those help their productivity? How does it help, why?
Yep. So third thing on the plan. So we have expectations, we have activities and priorities, and the third is, how do they want to be viewed as a leader within this company?
Yes.
And when I have brought that up in the past, this VP that I brought it up to, she's like, what does that mean? So in your mind, what when you're like, how would you do that?
Well,
what would you do?
Kind of aligning this a little bit with a previous episode with coaching, we talk about impact, right?
Yep.
So oftentimes when someone is, getting promoted, they just get so into the do it stage. Like, I get this done, this done, this done, this done. And they don't recognize or realize the impact that they have on their people. Well, when they first step into this role, if they're new to the organization, there's no history. So right away at the very beginning, when they step in this role, they are having an impact on the people around them that creates perception, how people are going to perceive them and view them as a leader right off the start, right? Now,
They're taking their baggage with them.
Well, and a person who's promoted, they've already had impact, by the way.
Right.
So we got to make sure, is the impact been what? Hopefully we've kind of worked through that a little bit. But what is that impact? How do they want to be viewed as a leader? And we're going to view ourselves, again, through our intentions. People are going to view us through our actions. So let's first think about, what do you want people to say? I think it's as simple as, if I were to interview your team and say, what's it like, working with so-and-so? What's it like working with Andrea? What do you want them to say?
Right.
And what then very specific actions do you need to do to create those feelings, that experience?
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, we can get so into that, I'm just going to head down, get this, good shit done, right? That we don't necessarily think about, you're doing it, I'm just helping the team, we're getting this project's going forward, and you don't recognize, I don't really know my team members that well, or I haven't taken time to find out what do they think our team does really well versus not, what are their strengths, and just all these various things that we should be doing on more of that. I hate using the soft skill side of it, but it's that
interpersonal.
It's that social connection, that social capital that we need to be building with our people to help build trust and build those relationships, so we start having the positive impact that's going to allow us to get buy-in and where people are doing what they need to be doing.
Yeah, it actually surprises me, and yet maybe it doesn't, that conversation doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in interviews, rarely. It doesn't happen in the initial conversation, whether they're being promoted today into a manager leadership role, mm-hmm. right? Or if they've been in a manager leadership role, is that conversation happening between the leader of the leader, right? Mm-hmm. Like, where is that conversation happening unless you go to a class, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know if some people even do that in classes, but we do. How do people want to be known?
We
right?
do. Well, and I think the one thing, again, I'm interrupting you, but you're like, stop. The one thing that I think where organizations sometimes trip over themselves a little bit is they promote that great doer mm-hmm. because they get results, they get things done, and they fail to recognize the impact they're having on their peers, the people around them, that now they've taken this person who maybe has had a kind of a negative impact on people because it's all about them, right? They're winning, they're getting their stuff done, they're the ones that are knocking it out of the park.
They could be having a negative, yeah.
And maybe they're not helpful from the other team members. Maybe they, blow off the other team members. Maybe they don't consider their perspective or include them and variety of things. But now I've promoted them and expect them to be successful at getting that stuff done through these people who really don't respect that person. And that's unfortunately sets that quote unquote person who was extremely successful in getting stuff done. I'm not saying with people, right? A doer. And it can really set them up for failure because there's so many barriers with how the people around them view them before they promote them.
Yes. So looking at creating this plan for their first, for sure, 6 months. I mean, there are books out there, the first 90 days. And yes. I think those are really, really good resources, right? But how do you get that person up and ready to roll? And what is your support role in this? It's not only inspecting, it's coaching and developing. It yes. is following through. It is asking questions. It is sometimes training, right?
Yeah, it's that coaching for development, that coaching for training, mm-hmm. it's that coaching for impact.
Right.
It gets into all the different purposes of coaching.
And the other part of all of those is, where are their resources? And I think that a lot of organizations don't have lists or a location for where resources are. So if I need to learn how to, what do I do with a PTO request? What do I do with that? Is there anything that is written anywhere? Where is that? Is that located on an intranet somewhere? Is it, on SharePoint someplace? Is there, something like that people can go to for sure. On the leadership side, there's all kinds of things. Are there videos? Are there books? Are there classes they can be a part of? The person who is their leader needs to be involved as a resource in there.
Yes.
Right? And so where these one-on-ones, especially during the first 6 months, people should be having one-on-ones all the time, every month. Like that's our belief. But initially, they should be more frequent because there's a lot more questions.
Yes.
And so we're big advocates for when people first start, they need to be keeping journals on what did I learn? What's still confusing? What questions do I have? Is there anything, that you see could be changed or different? Maybe we're not ready for that, but we need to keep a list of those things as we're going through because,
Yes.
as a person in a new role or a new person in the organization, you're going to see things differently than the people who have always done things. And so there may be some things that we should take a look at.
Yes.
So you promoted somebody into this management role. Now what? So the end of this, maybe the next chapter of this story was when I talked to this VP, we worked through all of these things. We talked through these things. And it took some time because as she was, as we had the conversation, it was from the very beginning of, I've just gotten permission to do these things. We kind of know what we're going to be doing. She could start putting this plan together and she didn't have to do it all one night because they were all starting tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Which that has happened too. But the reality is she did put some things together. And as she's doing this, she's been adjusting and tweaking things, adding things. But she's also learned that her intentionality of putting this plan together has made the transition so much more smooth
Yes.
than as she reflected back and said, this would have been a shit show. I can tell you that. And we would have been frustrated going back and forth. So the moral of that story is it's ending well, this phase of things. And I'm really proud of the work that she's done. So if you as listeners are looking for more resources as it relates to developing your leaders, there are links in the show notes. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss another episode.